Hello. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can track Calendly meeting bookings in Segment using Google Tag Manager. We're going to use Google Tag Manager for this, but the same principle applies if you're hard coding Segment. So let's jump in. So first things first, the Calendly meeting here, the key to getting this all to work, whether you're using Segment, Google Analytics 4, Google Tag Manager, hard coding Segment, whatever it is you need to redirect your Calendly booking page to an external site, namely your website. So on our website, slideruleanalytics.com, I have this thank you page, meeting thank you page like this, and then you're going to want to pass the event details to that redirected page. So let me show you where you can do that. So if you're on the event type here, I'll go ahead and go to our standard meeting. You're going to go settings, edit, like this. Now, this option is only available on paid Calendly plans, so just keep that in mind. But here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to booking pages, right? Scroll down and select redirect to external site. By default, Calendly displays stuff on the confirmation page. Cool. Enter in your redirected URL. Like I said, make it a thank you page like that. And you're going to want to pass the event details to that redirected page. Here's all the information about the event details that can be passed to the page. They're going to be passed as URL parameters, and that's how we're going to capture them. Okay, cool. So an important thing here is the UTM parameters will also be passed. So what that means is if you have links directly to your Calendly page, so like here, right? If you send out a link directly to your Calendly page or you post a link on your website or something like that, you're going to want to make sure that you pass the UTM source to that as well, the UTM information, UTM source, medium, etc. So if those are available on the Calendly page, they will be passed to the booking page, which we're going to use to fire an event to Segment, which we'll see here in just a second. Okay, cool. So here's my Calendly page. I've got my UTM information, right? And of course, someone's going to come in here and book a meeting. Before we do that, let's take a look at what we're going to do in Google Tag Manager. So over in Google Tag Manager, I have two events related to Calendly. This is for Segment in this case, but the same thing's going to apply if you're using Google Analytics or RudderStack or some other one, right? Cool. So I have two events, right? One is this Calendly scheduled event, right? And the trigger for this is that the page view, right, has an event type UID not equal to undefined, right? So what's going to happen here is the Calendly is, when I book this meeting, Calendly is going to put an event type UID like this in the URL parameters. And I've created a variable here, URL event type UID, that looks like this, URL event type UID, like this. Cool. So you see that that matches exactly the information here, right? Okay, cool. So we've got URL query, give me the event type UID. If that is not undefined, then someone has just booked a Calendly meeting, and I want to fire the segment event Calendly scheduled. That's what we do. Now, notice also I've created a bunch of custom properties, right, that use all of the parameters that I think are relevant here. You don't need every parameter, but I've included a bunch of them here, right? The Calendly answers, the Calendly event type UID, right? The email, the full name of the participant, the event type, et cetera, et cetera. Really, anything you want here, anything from here can be added to the segment event as a trait. All right, great. Now there's one more thing here. In Segment, it is always best practice to fire an identify event before we fire a track call like this Calendly scheduled event, right? So what we're going to do is in Google Tag Manager, we want to say, hey, for this Calendly scheduled event that I've triggered here, use a setup tag for the Calendly identify event. And in that event, we're going to fire an identify call with some custom traits. The traits we really care about are the invitee email, the name, the invitee UID, and phone, and the event the event here, I always just put an event on Calendly on any segment identify call. So I know I can say when was the last identify call that fired. That's not strictly necessary in this case. Okay, cool. So if I do this, we'll fire an identify call with the email and name. Great. And then we'll fire this Calendly scheduled event, right, with all of the properties of the event. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to book a meeting for tomorrow at 10:30. Next, I'm going to put in my demo information. Cool. Let's just say test, and I'll hit schedule event. We'll see what happens here. Okay, so I'm being redirected to the bookings page. So this is the thank you page that I had over in here, right? And you'll see that Calendly added all of these URL parameters to it, including the UTM source. It would include the medium if you had that as well. And here is what segment fired. So it fired the identify call, right? Here. So it fired an identify call, and then the Calendly scheduled event, just like we would expect. So let's take a look at that. So the identify call here includes the email, the name, the Calendly invitee UID, just like we would expect. Great, good. And then the Calendly scheduled event includes everything about that Calendly event that was passed into the URL here. And that's how it works. So I've included in the link, I've included in the description of this video, I've included a link to the Google Tag Manager, recipe that you can import into this, so you can just do this directly, or you can recreate these events yourself, right? But overall, this is just a great way to get, a very simple way actually, to get those Calendly invites, which can be really important for your business. If scheduling Calendly meetings is an important part of your business, you want to make sure that's tracked in Segment. And this is a very easy way to do it. It's much easier than using webhooks or anything like that. Hope you find this useful, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thanks.